at a time. Now I have a bow and arrow. I'm one person and I can take out 10 people at a time. Notice this ratio is getting steeper and steeper. I now have a gun. Actually, it's a musket gun initially. I could take you out at 50 yards. I don't even know what you look like and I can kill you. Then I have automatic weapons. One person can take out 20 people. You reload, take out another 20. A missile. You fire a missile. I can take out hundreds of people. War continues to, quote, advance. What else can I have? Oh, bombs. Yes. So now one person can kill thousands. Once you have an airplane, you can fly over someone's head. It renders the trench warfare obsolete. Airplanes can go over cities. You drop bombs on people's heads, whether or not they're combatants. So now you just make more and more powerful bombs.
If you have one of these, your home's ready for an upgrade. Get
Now the bombs are no longer just explosives like with gunpowder or anything. It's nukes, nuclear weapons, a birth at the end of the Second World War. Now, one person flying an airplane can kill tens of thousands, even millions. Tens of thousands initially with the atom bomb. These are the fission bombs that split uranium and plutonium atoms into lighter atoms, releasing energy in the process. Those were the two bombs over Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The first and only two times nuclear weapons were used in warfare. The bombs over Nagasaki and Hiroshima were like 20 kilotons, something like that. Kilotons, what unit is that? We don't have a way to measure the energy of atomic bombs, so you measured in terms of what the previous explosive powers were. TNT. TNT's dynamite. Discovered by Alfred Nobel, by the way, got rich, put in money to create the Nobel Prize. Kilo is 1,000, we all know. Ton is a ton. 1,000 tons of TNT. Not just one stick of dynamite, thousands of tons. You take that, ignite it in an instant. You incinerate everybody below you. And we have magnified the power of that weapon by 100. We call them hydrogen bombs, just the way the sun makes energy, taking hydrogen atoms, bringing them together to make helium atoms. That also releases energy, way more energy than you'd get by fissioning heavy atoms. No longer is it kilotons, it's megatons. Not just thousands of tons of TNT, millions of tons of TNT. Now one person who pushes a button or has a rocket to deliver ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles. I can sit here in the comfort of my chair, control a missile on my sovereign land. It'll enter suborbital because it leaves our atmosphere. It can't travel that far without resistance through the air. It leaves our atmosphere, goes its distance, comes back out of the sky, hits its target. You kill 1 million people. Clearly, that's a highly unstable situation, because now we are beholden to the sanity of anyone who has access to that button. Given the neurodiversity of our species, not everyone has the rational capacity to make a decision that would be in the interest of the world's health, wealth, and security. I'm old enough to remember MAD, Mutual Assured Destruction. It was the realization that if there's a first strike, while the weapons are airborne, spaceborne, while they're leaving the atmosphere, that's enough time for you to launch your weapons. If the country wants to really get at you, they'll attack you and your allies. So now everybody starts launching weapons. If you have total nuclear exchange and you ignite the forests and the vegetation of the world, this converts living plant tissue into carbon soot that goes into the air, blocking sunlight. This was the famous nuclear winter that was described in the early 1980s. Computing power was just becoming good enough to address the question of what happens if you darken the skies all around the
How are we
world.
doing?
The
Mr.
temperature of the
Jones
earth drops. Plants that depend on sunlight die. Animals that depend on plants die. Animals that depend on animals
we
that
doing?
depend on
You're
plants
average
die
guy.
in sequence. And you have nuclear holocaust, not only affecting earth life, but plant life and other animal life
How we
as
doing?
well.
CXN
The nuclear
man.
winter scenario, it assumed that the weapons would be equally distributed on Earth's surface. That's generally not how this works.
How we doing?
If you're
War.
launching nukes, you're going to launch it at the missile silos that might have other nukes that haven't launched yet. And you're going to launch it towards cities with multiple nukes coming
How
into
we
the same
doing?
city.
Carson military
So you
helmet.
won't get the spread that initial calculation had presumed. But what it did do was birth an entire science
How we doing?
of long-term climate modeling from assaults on the environment. And out of that, we got to have great confidence that the dinosaurs were taken out by an asteroid.
Joe.
An asteroid the size of Mount Everest that struck the Yucatan Peninsula off of Mexico, cast dust into the air, plunging Earth
Zinni
into
FPV.
darkness, rendering 70% of all species of life on Earth and in the ocean extinct. The world quickly
doing?
realized
Henry L.
how
U. H.
deadly
Crank.
this is. It's not just a bow and an arrow, it's not just fisticuffs. It is an asymmetry in warfare that had never been seen before. I'm reminded of a quote from Albert Einstein. I don't know how World War III
How
will
we
be
doing?
fought,
Geo.
but I know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. That's where war and the science of war has taken us. Scientists have
Peter Piper's pepper picking proved painful. So he ordered the supplies he needed from Amazon Business
Peter Piper picked peppers, but run rock rhyme.
and positively prospered.
in the waging of war. Governments, be they warmongering or otherwise, have always reached for the ingenuity and creativity of scientists and engineers of all stripes. You know, where do you get chemical weapons from?
doing?
You go to the
Cocoa.
chemist. Bio warfare, you go to the biologist. The astrophysicist, we don't make bombs, we don't know, but we care about multispectral imaging in dark places. We care about coordinates on Earth and in the heavens. We care about timing. What is a physicist
doing?
an expert at? It's matter, motion, and energy. And what is a military battle of any kind? It's I have energy over here and I want to put it over there. It could be I have a bullet here sitting in my gun, but I want to put that bullet over there with energy that I give it. I have a bow and arrow. I pull the string, pumping potential energy into the bow. When I let go, the bow springs forward, the arrow goes, sending kinetic energy over here to over there. That is the basis of essentially every military conflict. There is no war that is won without the exploitation of science and technology at its center. A little bit about me and my history. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. All I ever knew was the Vietnam War. I grew up in an era where war is bad. War is bad. How could war ever be good? But meanwhile, I'm still observant, and I look around town, and there's statues to war heroes, military servicemen standing proud. And I said, how is it that I could think war is bad where apparently at all these other times, not the time coincident with the Vietnam War, but at all these other times,
Jansen
war
West.
was commemorated with pride and dare I say even celebrated. That's what
Jansen
kind of
West says
Memorial Day and Veterans Day is all about. You are celebrating those who fought in wars and commemorating those who died in wars. This is a celebration, a recognition. Whereas in the Vietnam era, there was none of that. So that's where I was forged. My sense of war was forged. But my rational mind was saying, what is the rest of this about? There are occasions where, yeah, war is necessary. A bad actor rises up whose interests do not comport with what we might think of as civilization, the preservation and prolonging of civilization as we have built it and as we have come to embrace it. Easily, who comes to mind, of course, is Adolf Hitler. Yes, there are times when you are fighting evil forces, but you have to ask who defines who's evil.
In starting and making a war, not the right is what matters, but victory. The strongest has the right.
It's hard to argue against the idea that to protect freedom is a good thing, and the fact that freedom isn't always free. It reminds me, I saw a comic long ago where two people are facing each other with a bow and arrow pointed right at each other's necks. And each one says at the same time, the harder I pull, the safer I feel. It's like, really? As a scientist, when we disagree with one another, we might argue our case vociferously. Some people are a little more emotionally invested in their ideas than others, so it can get heated. But at the end of the day, you know what we say to each other? We need more data. When more data come in and then it resolves the conflict, then we agree, go out, have a beer, and then move on to the next frontier question. That's the brain wiring of a scientist. It's not the brain wiring of politicians
Jansen
or
West says, "See you, bro. Have a blessed
many
day."
other sort of sectors of society where they need to interact with others. I've had some exposure to military operations. Now, I never served in the military, not as a soldier, but I did serve on a board of the Pentagon.
This has gotten so out of hand.
I feel liberated, over medicated.
So what's next?
We're gonna take this city back.
This should be
Defense Innovation Board. It was an attempt to alert the military that the strength in armies going forward, the strength of nations going forward, is not measured by how many soldiers are on the ground. It's not even necessarily measured by how many nukes you have in your silos. It can be measured by how clever you are with either computing or calculations or strategies that come from a place that's not just how big is your weapon. We look at the reasons why people have fought wars over the years. A common one is access to limited resources. I want what you have. I need what you have. Oh, you're not going to share it? You're not going to give it to me, therefore I'm going to take it. Well, you can only do that. You can only threaten to do that if you have the resources, the financial resources, the scientific resources, the engineering resources. Other reasons why people fight with limited access to resources, yes. Religion. Again, I come to it as a scientist. If there's a batch of scientists over there who say, E doesn't equal MC squared, E equals MC cubed, are we going to go to war over that? No. I would say, no, let me show you why that is not true. And I would demonstrate it with experiments and examples. That doesn't work as well when you have belief systems. If you come from a belief system, then what you believe doesn't have the evidence that science would normally require to establish. what is objectively true. That's why they're called belief systems, because you believe that something is true.
How we doing?
Now, you may believe it so strongly that you know it's true, but that's an internal emotion that you carry. Belief systems are such that it may be true for you, but it's not really true for other people unless you convince them of it. And since it's based on belief, rational arguments tend to not work. You need methods of coercion or force, ultimately threat of violence, perhaps even threat of death. And so some of the most violent encounters civilization has ever had with itself is when one warring faction has a belief system that differs from that of their adversary. It's interesting to ask of ourselves in society, is there anything you would die for? You get one chance in life. What I have found is that the less tangible the thing is you're fighting for, the more abstract it is, the less evidence there is in support of it, the more willing people are to die for it. And so war always seems to be this glorious thing at the beginning, and then the body bags start coming back, and not only military casualties, but civilian casualties, just trying to live their lives, who are now susceptible to decisions made by people in power, who generally are not themselves the same people who go do the fighting. I find that dismaying.
How we doing?
Just being human
Yuji Itadori.
in civilization as a scientist. But it's real, and it happens, and that's how the world is put together. With or without the League of Nations coming out of the First World War, with or without the United Nations after the Second World War, with charters that are signed, Geneva Conventions. At the end of the day, you can ask the question, can we just all get along? Let me end on a slightly more positive note. All the UFOs people have been seeing in the sky, lights that we can't explain, I'm glad some part of the military budget is going to investigating them, because people have been seeing them for decades. I've never seen anything that I couldn't identify. I know a lot about weather and climate and sky conditions and planets and moons and what they do and weird things that they do. So I've never seen anything I couldn't explain. So it was all IFOs to me. But maybe some of these UFOs would pose a danger to us. Again, to our health, our wealth, or our security. Maybe. So I'd want the military to check it out. And if it's a threat from space, maybe the greatest task of all would be to protect Earth from aliens. In fact, in the 1980s, President Reagan
GDC and just in general. And the biggest story is this week running on PC, but now we finally have a good in-depth look at console stuff. We also have essentially console performance. So Crimson Desert dropped PC spec requirements, which are on screen here, as well as has a breakdown of like what modes and what we can expect to get out of the console versions, all the way from Xbox Series S and X to PS5 to PS5 Pro. I think generally they're pretty solid. I can't break them all down here for you, but if you want to pause and look at it, here you go. It's also all linked in the description down below, but just depending on what you're playing on specifically. But again, I think the biggest thing here, the big takeaway, is that it's 7 years of development and presumably a shit ton of people, an army of people working on this game, is why it looks this good. Again,
Well, everyone, the day has come. I played over 6 hours of Crimson Desert. Was damn near flawless. I had no crashes, I had no stutters, I had no frame dips. It ran immaculately at over 80 frames per second for the full 6.5 hours I played. The only technical issues I ran into were a couple of bugs with puzzles in that late game save file. I'll talk more specifically about this later in the video, but they were quickly remedied with a reload from checkpoint. That being said, other people around me were not so lucky. I will let them share their personal experiences, but I do know one person that was sat next to me did have 2 different crashes in those first 4 hours. The developers did tell us that there is a known GPU driver issue that was causing those crashes, and those issues will not be present at launch because they'll have official drivers from AMD and NVIDIA. Whether you believe that or not, whether you accept that explanation or not is up to you. I'm just telling you what they told us. They said that those crashes were because of a driver issue that will not be present at launch. Make of that what you will. As for the gameplay itself, this game is everything it appeared to be in the trailers. It is insane, it is massive, but it is also not going to be for everybody. If you're still holding out hope for a Red Dead 2 or Witcher 3 level narrative, you're not going to find it here because that's just not what this game is. But if you're hoping for a vast sandbox with some honestly really surprising gameplay mechanics and interactivity, I think it's going to blow you away.
This bard's tale begins near White Orchard, with my dear friend Geralt of Rivia seeking his lover of yore, the sorceress Yennefer. She'd eluded him for years, but now seemed just a few steps ahead.
How we doing, Brandon Scheffler? How we doing, Mud? How we doing, Cad God Sleeps? How we doing, me, myself, and I? How we doing, Blaine? Blaine says yo, what's up? How we doing, Injos? How we doing, Damien? How we doing? Literally everything's in space. How we doing? How we doing, D? How we doing, Yalhate? How we doing, Cameron Casey? How we doing? How we doing, Places? How we doing, Jermaine O'Neal? How we doing, Emanuela? How we doing, Fungus Among Us? How we doing? Nobody got more confidence. How we doing, Dash? Popular Motive says W Game. How we doing? How we doing, Jay-Z Corey? Popular Motive says can't go wrong at all, phenomenal gameplay and the storyline. How we so in depth and to actually feel TS. How we doing, Popular Motives? How we doing, Demayan? Popular Motives says did you see Thayer making a new one? How we doing? Spice God Dizzy. Popular Motives says okay, yes, I didn't want to spoil it. Spice God Dizzy is taking us to infinity and beyond. How we doing? Popular Motives says when we gone run some, I've been waiting to run some. How we doing? JC. How we doing? Stewie Low. How we doing? Zeno Wing. How we doing? Josh. Popular Motive says mem my PC want download TSI have ARC and some other stupid games doing? Like Phasmophobia, Repo, etc. How we doing? Wake up. How we doing? Pete. How we doing? Blaze Wooten. Popular Motive says I have a 4070 paid 600 a few years ago. They're so expensive now. How we doing? Jacob the Goat. Popular Motive says that JC15 is just how we doing? Muaz Barrera. How we doing? H. How we doing? Prabhatakari. How we doing? Gabino. S. How we doing? Popular Motive says I couldn't get into the shows cause I just can't sit still and watch TS and it stinks. How we doing? Amr Haboob. How we doing? Brandoms. Popular Motive says a DDADHD double whammy. How we doing? Sebastian. How we doing? Mandy's Candies. Popular Motive says NGL, they released it on Game Pass, I might foo around and cop it again. How we doing? Kiyotaka A. How we doing? Austin Hill.
Good folk! Murder! Mercy!
How we doing? Lil Mac.
Show me what you got.
How we doing? Mar. Popular Motive says anything they release on Game Pass is free. While
Where'd you come from?
Buy it if they...
You know, Witcher, Falcons.
How we doing? It's Zaj. How we doing? Tay. How we doing? Chino, my boy. How we doing? HIMKIAH. How we doing, Scotty B? Popular Motive says if THT thing massacring groups of people, then probably in that time of age. How we doing, Tay? Popular Motive says that's like saying me stepping on a group of ants doesn't make me a murderer. How we doing? Nada. How we doing? Kevin May. How we doing? HXNTER. How we doing, Ty? How we doing, Luis? Popular Motive says nowadays no, but think about it in the time of this game being taken in place. Scotty B is going off. How we doing? Tuck got next. How we doing? Sticks. How we doing? Sax Fiend.
Thistle. Thistle. Shenanacking.
How we doing? God first. How we doing? Bin Dang. How we doing? I'm Black. How we doing? K Guns All. How we doing? No Limit Margot.
Where'd you come from?
How we doing? Easton.
Can't lose hope.
Scotty B is going off. How we doing? Islander. How we doing? The People's Ginger.
Whoreson!
How
Don't
we
let
doing?
him catch his
Eva.
breath!
How we doing? Jay. How we doing? Afro. How we doing? Mystery Black Large Square. How we doing? Ian. How we doing? Vontae, Neil. How we doing? Tony Hawk's real dad. How we doing? SHMIDTYB. How we doing? Ethan C. How we doing? LaCarlos Asilla. How we doing? Jaden. How we doing? JECB. How we doing? Jackson L. How we doing? Jaden. How we doing? Lord Nagali. How we doing? Hunter Norris. How we doing? J Money.
Good folk! Holy enemy!
Hey, man.
How we doing? Big Ben.
Damn deer, stick the bark off the trees again. Looking for trouble.
How we doing? B Bucks.
Freak.
Hey,
May the sun shine upon you.
Blake.
What is this?
Holy help me!
How we doing? White.
Come on.
How we doing? Gray. How we doing? Billy Butcher. How we doing? Key. How we doing? Waimilwasia.
Mercy!
How we doing? Lore Okoye.
God!
Scott says love that doesn't matter. How we doing? Jacob.
Looking for trouble.
How we doing? FCK at we. T-Balla says shalom brother, feeling better? How we doing? Shane. How we doing? Chris. How we doing? Blackout edits. How we doing? Scotty B. How we doing? Burn with the earth. we doing? Cade and Scotty B says use the map to see where you died and go back.
Damn it.
How we doing? How we doing? Caden from Flint. How we doing? Ricky. Joshua.to-see. How we doing? How we doing? Edward Swisher Hands. How we doing? AC on TT. How we doing? Rod.
Go, go.
Eagles edits. How we doing, Brother Bear? How we doing, Owen? How we doing, DC? How we doing, NFL Talk? How we doing, Scotty B? How we doing, AK? How we doing, Prabhakaran? How we doing, ASDF?
That's it, Roach.
How we doing, FINN? How we doing, Carmen?
Go, go.
How we doing, Pleasant Boy? How we doing? It's Cam. Scotty B is going off.
Bad time.
Not at all. Hand me the beggar tickets. The red bloom. Well, well, one versed in herbs.
Probably saying too much, but I know a bit. For instance, that beggar tick's poisonous.
In large doses. Small ones soothe pain and bring forth
How we
pleasant
doing?
dreams.
Johnny Aces.
Which is all I can hope to do for her.
How we doing? User.
Griffin do that to her?
Delina. Yes. Attacked her at night. She was walking in the woods.
At night? Through the woods?
How
in
we
wartime?
doing? Did he do it?
Meeting a boy. The young, you know, do foolish things for love. Wounds are healing, but she will die. Blood's pooling in
How
the
we
skull.
doing? Bill Spade
Nothing my
X.
bruise can do to help.
How we doing? Sleazes.
I've agreed to kill the Griffin. No more victims after I do.
There will be, of course. With the griffin gone, others will
How
kill
we
in
doing?
its stead.
Minnow.
Monsters or men.
So what do you think I should do?
Ply your trade. But don't think you can change anything.
How we doing? Mike Perks.
Looking for buckthorn. Know if it grows anywhere around here?
Bottom of the
How
river,
we doing?
where the channel's
Mulch.
widest. But you do know that once out of the water...
It'll stink worse than a week-old carcass. Counting on it.
Oh yes, the griffin.
Scotty
Might have
is
guessed.
going off.
I was thinking, a few years ago we had trouble, drowners under the bridge. Whole village had to pitch in for a witcher. Who now
How
can
we
afford the
doing?
bounty on a
Austin.
griffin's head?
Captain Peter Sars, something.
Ah, good.
Seems like a decent man.
There are no decent men in the army.
Ed says you ever seen the
There
movie
are
City
any
of
orders.
God? Ed.
Not from here, are you? A lot of bitterness in you. Too much for someone who spent her life in a hut in the middle of nowhere.
How we doing?
True.
James Da.
And you're in a hurry. Elsewise you'd not use bait, just wait for the griffin to attack again.
Believe we could have an interesting
How we
conversation.
doing? GC.
Maybe next time.
How we doing? JYO. Scotty D is going off.